Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, and it is now a course at NYU and an elective towards the journalism certificate. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. And I am so excited to have my good friend who I've known for decades, Tara Sutphen, with us today. Tara is the author of this fabulous book, Soul Writers: Guidance Beyond the Veil. And so that's a very tantalizing title, and I want to tell you a little bit about Tara. Tara Sutphen is a master of the mystic arts, an author, psychic, and hypnotherapist. She has authored books and is Grammy nominated. She has created several lines of meditation recordings, MP3s, and DVDs. Tara specializes in shamanistic techniques, which teach you to utilize your psychic abilities at your highest possible level. She is a master hypnotist. Her goal programming techniques have helped many become successful, find love, create better health, reach spiritual attunement, happiness, and even become famous and or wealthy. Tara is well known for her channeling and automatic writing with her spirit guide, Avenda. Tara conducts and facilitates seminars and workshops all over the world. Over 200,000 people have attended a Sutphen seminar, workshop, or retreat. And I'll put how you can reach Tara in the show notes. Her website is tarainsight.com, TARAINSIGHT.com. Tara, it's so great to have you.
I know, it's so great to be here with you, Estelle.
Oh my gosh. So Tara and I have quite a history. As people know who've read my book, Writing That Gets Noticed, I was a former magazine editor-in-chief. And I worked in magazines in the 90s and up until the early aughts. And I was an editor. I was a senior editor at American Woman magazine when I first learned about Tara. And I learned about her abilities to, now it's called sourcing, but it's past life regression. And I had always been interested in past life regression. I think I read when I was a teenager a book about Bernie. That's all I can remember. And she talked about this past life. And then I think Dick Sutphen, Tara's ex, had written a book about past lives as well.
Yeah.
And I think I read that. And then I was introduced to Tara, who was teaching a seminar. And we connected, and I was fascinated. Part of my job at American Woman magazine was I was curating content for the magazine. And so I met Tara in person, and we just became fast friends, I think.
We did.
And I was very different. She was married at the time. She had kids. I was a single lady living in New York, and yet we really related to each other. And I just looked up to Tara so much. And when I saw her do her session on past life, it took me back to a past life regression with an ex-boyfriend. And it made me realize some of the things that I was dealing with in this life. And I was so impressed at Tara's ability to master an audience. So there's a performative aspect to working with a large crowd, but you also have to be real to really resonate with them. And that's what I got from Tara. That's what I saw that she had. And I was somebody who I didn't like to drive far, but Tara was going to do a session at the Omega Institute. I hopped in my car and I drove, I think it was 4 hours in,
I
the
know.
rain. And it just, I had to get there. I had to see Tara. And that at that time is also when I met her then husband, Dick Sutphen, who had been a very famous hypnotherapist in the 70s. He was part of the reason that it came to popular consciousness. And then Tara and him worked together very successfully for about 30 years. But what I noted with Tara was that she had a gentler, kinder way of teaching to the people who were following her than her husband. And
Yes,
I did mention that to you. Remember that? I said that
right.
to you. I
Oh,
said,
I
don't be
remember.
offended. And you were like, no,
Mhm.
no, it's okay.
He appealed to a lot of people who just really needed to be shoved into somewhere to where
Okay.
I'm more like, let's really explore this. And, you need nurturing. Let's just open up our chakra centers and our goodness within and like
Beautiful.
bring it to the fore. Don't fight our lives. Don't fight it. Because that's what we do. Every day people fight themselves, their looks, their what they eat, how they spend their time, that they don't have enough time. They stress out about everything. And so it's like, no, 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 get back to where is you feel that you're living the life that you want to lead. Like
That's,
every step is a
that's
beautiful, amazing
beautiful.
life.
And what I noted from you is you had the real strong feminine energy, and that is a power. That's a very powerful source of energy and connection. And you have that, Tara. So let's jump ahead. When I became the editor in chief of Woman's Own, I gave Tara a column, right? You briefly
Mhm.
had a column,
Yes, that's right.
and it
Yeah.
was a tarot column, right?
I had tarot column from you. I had handwriting analysis articles and
I
uh
think it was like a
astrology
combination.
articles. I mean, I think you we went the gamut
We did
of
different
lot.
things, yes, and
Yeah,
Tara, in fact, has a
almost 3 years.
meditation in my book, Writing That Gets Noticed, and so she's someone. So I wanna introduce my audience, my listeners to Tara. I want her to talk a lot about, because not everybody is understanding about what spiritual writing and what it is you do. So let's start, first of all, can you explain what you do and how you access the other side, even through a Benda, your spirit guide, and kind of break it down for the people watching and listening.
This is the thing with our office manager, and kind of how it started is saying, why doesn't Tara write a self-help article for our magazine, our personal magazine that went out to all over the world? And it was a magalog. It had articles in it and had a lot of our products because, we had hundreds of hypnosis CDs of mine and Richard's. So the thing is that I started this article, these articles, and the self-help part of it, it wasn't right really without just a little bit more of my occult knowledge. And so I started doing the divinity with it. And so I decided, oh, I'm going to do automatic writing with my spirit guide, who I had near-death experiences too as a child. And so I was like, oh, I will have her help me. And so if I wanted to know about Estelle, I would ask my spirit guide, Abenda, who loves Estelle or who's her spirit guide, and will you write through my hand and tell me what she needs or answer her question? And so that's how it began. And it was just verified over and over and over. And that was the beauty of it, is that names and places and and relatives and all sorts of things will come up out of this automatic writing. And so I trusted myself. I trusted whatever they were telling me because of Benda, she's a no nonsense. She thinks romance a little bit, like as humans, we're a little bit off the chart sometimes. And she's like, okay, no, let's be realistic, logical here. So she brings in somebody who will give you real information. And so that's how that started. And this is actually the 5th book. So I did that for years, the letters.
There are a lot of people, I have a lot of academics who follow me, right?
Right?
Academics are not necessarily connected to the spiritual world
Right.
or the other side. Can you explain a little bit, and then we'll go deep dive into your book about, like, I guess you could use the gravity to explain the different vibrational rates, just so people can understand?
I always felt that I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was young, and I took years of equine science. But the thing is that I was always going toward my destiny. My destiny was to be doing spiritual work. Whether I wanted it or not, it always set itself in my path. And the first person that I really connected with was Sharva Venta, and he was up on the Alaska pipeline. And so he would talk to me about spirituality a lot. And his dad was Beatnik, who actually was killed the day I was born. And so then I met Jess Stern, and Jess Stern and I were bonded immediately. It was the oddest thing because I was very young and he was in his older years. And we became very best friends. Like, I probably am one of the accolades of his life to
Can
just
you
carry on
explain?
this work,
Yes.
this spiritual mystery of what it is that we are trying to experience on the earth and on the other side. Like when we die, before we're born, nobody remembers any of this stuff because the gravitational pull, I think, takes us and says, oh, no, no, no. And then, you can't remember these things. But as a child, since I was a 6-week-old baby when I had my first near-death experience, and they were giving me 7.5 hours and my blood wasn't moving in my body. And so they brought in the baptized me in this hospital and ready for me to die. And so the thing was, and I think I died a few times on that because I was so connected to knowing as a baby everything, like who my parents were. Loved my parents, but my parents were like clueless. It's like these humans. It's like, you're making me cry. Like, I'm really mad at you. Anyway, just really things that I would look at them and go, wow. And they would never ask me any questions. I thought that was very odd too. Even as a 2 to 4 or 5-year-old, I would always be so surprised that they wouldn't ask me questions. I was trying to explain things to them, but I remember everything as a baby, and I was terrified of my past lives, terrified. And so I realized that those past lives, and I felt that I had a past life with you really strongly, really strong. And
Me,
so,
yeah.
yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh.
You told me
Like,
that. I remember that.
oh
And then
yeah.
Adenda confirmed it when I still have
Mhm.
the reading that she did for me all those
Yeah.
years ago, which was
Yeah.
amazing.
So I've been fascinated because it's always been a part of my life, and I could never get away from it because, like my best friend became Jess Stern when I was 21 years
Can
old.
you tell a little bit who Jess
Yeah.
Stern is? Because the younger generation is not going to know.
Yeah, Jess Stern worked for, I think it's the Daily News. Well, it's the New York Daily News. He was a very, very big journalist. And then he became editor of Newsweek. So this magazine that probably you guys all don't know about too, was a huge news magazine back in the 60s. I mean, probably 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s maybe. But yeah, he was prolific. And I believe that he brought Eastern thought into the Western world, actually, because he wrote the bestseller New York bestseller, Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation in 1965. So nobody was into yoga in 1965, but he started, and he says in the book that he put the word reincarnation to actually shock people. Like he thought, oh, if it's in the title, then it would shock people. But then he started researching it and he loved it. And everybody around the world who was doing really remarkable things with reincarnation, like regressing children and stuff, would be talking to him all the time. And so I was involved with very exciting research all the time.
That's fascinating. And I think I got the word wrong. I think it was Bridie Murphy was one of the
Oh,
first.
Bridie Murphy,
Yeah, I
right?
was saying
Bridie.
Birdie. It was like
Yeah,
Bridie.
yeah,
I was like, I
Bridie.
knew I said it wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a book. I don't remember what, but that was one of the first cases of reincarnation. I recently actually wrote for the Digital Party a story about reincarnation when I went to the Edgar Cayce Institute, which you
Right.
mentioned in your book.
Yeah, well, let me say about Jeff
Yeah.
Stern too, is that he was the one who made Edgar Cayce famous. He went down, he was doing a lot of research on metaphysical topics, and he went down to the ARE Institute. Edgar Cayce was gone, but in the notes it said, when Stern comes, give him everything. And so Stern showed up, and I mean, everybody was there. I guess Hugh Lynn Cayce, the son, and Gladys, the secretary, they all gave him everything they could to help him with his article that became a book, The Sleeping Prophet. He wrote it in 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's a famous book. I mean, that was famous.
Very famous.
And Edgar Cayce was somebody who was a very spiritual man, and he went into states of unconsciousness. But during that state, would get information about people and their health situations through something called the Akashic Record, which is a record of everything that's ever happened in the world,
Yeah,
in
like
the
your soul,
spiritual
your
realm.
soul keeps. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he was able to tap it. So he had gotten in the mail, I think, in the early 1900s, maybe 1800s, I don't know. But he had gotten hypnosis pamphlets on how to do it because he was having a hard time. He would lose his voice. And so when he would be hypnotized, his voice would come back. And so it was just like this weird thing. And finally, he got his voice back. But it was this whole thing about his voice. And so, yeah, hypnosis helped him regain his voice. And it just became this phenomenon.
I remember back in the 90s, I wasn't married. I didn't have, my daughter, nothing. And I aspired to this future, and I would listen. I'd come home from work, a long day at the office, sometimes till 9 at night, being magazine editor. And I would listen to these meditation tapes where I got into my beta brain waves. The publishing was such a busy, fast-paced thing that it was always this fast moving brainwave, which is a natural for me, but to get into the beta is really where things get manifested. And so I would visualize somebody's arms around me, I would visualize the things that I wanted to happen in my life, including a good marriage, including a child, including, pets, and all the different things that I thought I wanted in my life, speaking, all that stuff. And I really do believe in the power of manifestation. And Tara is somebody, it's not just airy fairy stuff. CEOs and CFOs and heads of industry come to her for her consultations. So let's dive into the book, because you really cover three particular people who have crossed over. Jeff Stern, who we talked about, Dick Sutphen, who is her ex-husband, the father of three of her children, and Patrick Smith, who is the Irish seer. So why did you decide to, and you answer a lot of questions in here, and they also show their evolution in their personalities and what they're thinking about, and you ask a lot of deep questions. So first of all, the genesis of the book. I like to go back to the very beginning. Like, how did you decide you would do this? How did you decide? I mean, you've known many people who have passed over. How did you decide these three people? And particularly, how come you let Dick in?
Right, right. So Jess and I had always talked about that I should probably do a lot of automatic writing with him. And his early stuff when he died in 2002, it was really the way he really conveyed all the information. I just let him go because I have to tell you, he was somebody that was hugely prolific, easy, writing with him, he just took over, and there's not a mistake. Every period, every comma, all the words are spelled correctly, everything. He's really a joy to write with as far as an automatic writing person to write with. And this is Estelle. Estelle has always been, I look up to you, how you can write just such beautiful words just so easily. For me, I've always okay, when I'm doing like an article or something, I'll like Amanda, Jess, you guys better come through right now because I'm having a hard time bridging concepts together or something, or, throwing it down paper. I'm not as natural a great writer as like Estelle. Estelle's just a great writer. You are. So anyway, Jess is a great writer. So we always, in our conversations, and I was so close to him. I mean, he's really one of my very dearest friends in this life. And just who would have thought, as far as our age difference, and but I had a baby born on his birthday. I got married to Dick on his deck. So we would talk over the years. And then Patrick died in 2015. And that was very sad because he was from Ireland. I had met him in Ireland, in Galway. Yeah, there's Jess. Yeah, Jess. And there's Cheyenne, who they're born on the same day.
Cheyenne's her daughter. Yes.
Yeah, my daughter. And so Patrick, they all knew each other. See, he would always be coming into Jess's house too, and he and Dick were friends. So when Dick died, it was really interesting because it was like 6 a.m. and Jess woke me up in the dream state, in a lucid dream state. Yeah, there's my husband took Sutphen. I took that, Sedona. So Jess said, Richard died this morning and we have him. And I was like, we have him? Like, you guys are like going to take, where are you taking him? Like, where? Anyway, so right away, they took him to my temple, where Abenda is, and they took him right away up. And it was like, why are you taking him in my sphere, my area? Because we didn't part well. So it was like, why are you doing this? So, and mind you, Richard and I never had an argument for the 32 years we were together. We never had an argument. But when we got divorced, whatever arguments there were, they came to the fore. And I don't argue, really. I don't believe in giving my power away in that way, but he had a few strokes and stuff. So he was, and a heart attack. So he was just not himself at all. So that's what I contributed to. Yeah. He was just not himself. I don't think he remembered like who I was really to him. So it was just like, okay.
It's really interesting. And I know you're going to talk also about Patrick Smith, but I had met Richard and had a few encounters with him, not many, but he had a very strong, somewhat strident personality. And in the book, in his spirit form, he is coming out very different, very supplicant to you.
I know.
It's really
like, oh my God. I know. It was like, okay, well, on the other side, he obviously is having an overview of being sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is fine, because I just let them talk, whatever they want. And he was a good writer too. He's not as easy as Jess is, but he's quite a good writer. So,
And
you
he
know,
was an expert at getting ideas into the popular consciousness. I do believe
uh,
that was a really big strength of his
yeah,
that he then helped you with also as you built your practice.
yeah,
And then sometimes the student surpasses the teacher,
right.
which I believe maybe because of the age difference and other things is what started to happen with the two of you. And of course, I'm not just the average reader because I know Tara, I've met
Right.
Richard. So I have my own viewpoint on the material in the book, but it definitely follows with what I know with what happened in your life and in your relationship, at least with him. I don't know Patrick Smith. I know you mentioned him a couple of times and you had gone
Yeah,
to Ireland. So if you can just tell a little
yeah,
bit about him also.
right. So in Ireland, I was working the festival. Mind Body Spirit Festival type of festival, and in Galway, Ireland. And he was very helpful because it was very stormy that day. And he said that he wanted to come over for Christmas. And I thought, well, we have a huge family, 8 kids. So you want to come in for Christmas, you can. I don't care. Anyway, so he won the lottery and won the exact amount for an airline ticket to America.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's
That's
like, okay, come on
manifesting.
over.
Yeah.
I mean, he just said, put it out there in the universe. And he met this wonderful woman when he would come back and forth and visit. And so he met this wonderful woman. Her name is Jackie Jordan. And so he married her. And he had a beautiful life.
Let's get into your structuring of the book because you
Yeah,
had many, many chapters and you broke it up by each person. I mean, you did a little
right.
explanation of who you are and who Abenda is, and then you broke it up by the people. And then you did a whole section on questions, like, for example, why isn't love easy? Please explain horrible circumstances, the basic death process, the basic birth process, where are souls from? When we cross, will we end up where you are? Like, really, all the questions that anyone who's ever thought about their own ending or their own beginning, if you think about it, if you look at something continuing forward. Why do past lives matter? Vendettas, is there a way to get out of vendettas? You just carry so many important questions in here. So talk to me about how you thought about the structure, and did it evolve? Did it bend to tell you how to do it, your spirit guide, or did it just flow from a different source?
No, she orchestrates. So it's always orchestrated by Abenda. And then, because I was like, why is Richard around? So we did our first meeting for the questions, and Jess had already been answering some. But then I thought, why not Patrick? Because Patrick was interested in all this too. And then we had a meeting, and Richard started saying about all his past material. And I said to Benda, I can't work with him.
This is her ex-husband who towards the end was when they divorced
Awful.
was not very nice.
Awful.
And he's now on the spirit side. He
Yeah.
was the master in their life in the beginning.
Mhm.
She was the acolyte, she was the pupil, she learned, but she grew. And now he wants to be a part of this project. This is just was so funny. I was
So
laughing.
excited. Yeah,
Too.
he's
And
so
and
excited.
he was somebody who really wanted to assert his opinions and his thoughts, and you were in control of this, and you're saying, I'll take what I need from you. And
Yeah.
he's even admitting that now what's interesting is about the other side, this is fascinating to me, that it's like school. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're still taking these courses, we're still
They're taking courses. Yeah, especially on their level. That's where like all the spirit guides are and stuff. Yeah, they're like trying to feed us consciousness. They're trying to feed us really knowledge and wisdom. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. In reality, all of a sudden they don't have, your aches and pains, and you just don't have a body. You have the outline of a body. There's something about they're still on the earth plane in an odd way, like on a different frequency. So we see them in a certain way. They're visual to us, as well as, for me, I can transfer pretty much, like I'm hugging them or writing with them. Last night, I did a session with my sister. My sister had stage 4 cancer twice, and she is hugely psychic. And whenever we pray together, it's incredible what happens. Anyway, so I said, want to do some work. And so I said, yeah, let's do some stuff. All of a sudden, I took her in this prayer, and she always picks a cloud. It's like a surface you can stand on, the cloud. But she's like, there's stairs there. There's stairs. And I said, my gray stairs? And she said, yeah, some well-worn stairs. And I said, oh my God, that's what I say, well-worn stairs. They're there. So I said, okay, let's go. We're going up them. And so we went to Abenda and to Jess, and Patrick was there, and my great grandmother was there, and her guide was there. And so we were talking like in around, and she's visualizing everything that is
That's
Jess's.
happening for
We
you.
go to my house first, my temple, and then we go to Jess's house.
Your temple in the spiritual realm.
In the spiritual world where Abenda, where Abenda is. And so, yeah, and so we go there. It's a very much a work area.
Look, can I just ask you a question? Do you feel that, because I'm like somebody who deals with pop culture, the consciousness of the culture at large.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that society is heading more towards an understanding that we are more than just our bodies, that the energies impact us? And will that affect, I mean, society is so fraught right now, after everything that's been happening. Do you see that will become something more of a trend or more of a focus?
Well, just from hindsight, I think that, like a large part of the population is always fraught with stress and not walking in the direction that they could easily go. Like they fight their circumstances and everything, money and love and all of it, being wise, creating good choices for themselves. They fight with all of it. So I'm feeling that it now, actually, it's had a big change where so many people are into yoga, they're into taking care of themselves, like they were in the 60s and 70s. They started really eating well and stuff, but not everybody got on that train, and they don't get on that train now. It's that same kind of population base that still continues to kind of learn and grow.
What about violence? I mean, there's so much violence in
I think it's always happened, the violence. I think that the violence has always been there. Like there's a certain level of crazy. There's a certain level of crazy. And maybe we just see it differently because we have the internet, and it's such a high rate of speed on how we gain the news now. Because in the old days, it was the newspaper, was, you didn't hear about horrible things right away. And in the olden days, it was word of mouth. You really didn't hear about anything. So it's a difference. That's the difference.
How did you decide on focusing the questions that you cover in the book? And maybe just mention a couple of them just to pique, the listeners' interest.
Yeah, well, it was like, explaining horrible circumstances, why do we have to? And does our soul age? And just randomly, I'm just going randomly in the book.
And what are the answers?
Our personal power, love, our choices and our choosing, stuff like that. Becoming a manager in our life, plans, movement, progression. It's basically like how do we do this? And is spirituality, is it important?
And
Yeah,
give
well,
a few answers so that it gets people excited. If you give a few
okay,
answers, that always helps. I always say that with pitching. When you pitch an editor, give
right.
what, just say, I'm going to cover
Yeah.
this, and here's
Uh-huh.
one of the answers, So if you could do that.
So here we go. Here we go. Is spirituality important? This is Jess. You
Yes.
feel your soul needs a place to land. If you don't choose where its home is, it might be lost in a sea of outer space. There are controlling principles to each religion and dogma. Most humans park theirs in a place where they revisit and secure their soul's future. It is important, you ask? Not really. As you are born and vanish easily without ever needing to find this nest.
Interesting. It's interesting because when you talk about religion, actually Judaism believes in reincarnation. They don't believe that you come back as an animal. They believe it's the human spirit, that nothing is ever wasted, which follows with the tenets. And I believe in the book you said also, like, humans come back as humans. I think you said that.
Right. There's no transmigration
Yeah.
of going into animals. It's not. No,
And
they come from their own source.
yeah,
So,
I think it's fascinating. There's so many fascinating tenets that you cover in terms of the questions. And this book is how many pages? Let's
oh,
just
410.
410.
It
Okay,
was,
I thought
oh
my
my
book was big
gosh.
at 352. You're at 410.
352. Oh yeah, I know. I know. I
The
was
importance
like,
of family, just so much information. And I think there's really a timeliness to this kind of information because if you learn how to manifest, if you learn how to work with the energies, if you learn how to make the most of this life, it sets you up for other ones too. And I saw this amazing movie that I saw when I was little, and I always loved it. It's Barbara Streisand, On a Clear Day You Can See Forever.
yeah.
And it's about reincarnation. And I think it's a great way for somebody who doesn't really understand the principle, A, read your book, and B, see a movie like that just
Right.
puts it into a real popular consciousness.
Yeah. I tend to know all the shaman of the world. And
Yeah,
it's like, why? I mean, shaman, I mean, like great spiritual people, period. I,
right. It's not witchcraft per se. It's a
no, I'm never, no, people call me a witch, they'll call me a witch, but
yeah,
the thing is, I'm really a spiritual person. And
you're a spiritual leader. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. That's the best background to an experience level to be able to write a book like this from. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share about the book, Tara?
no, just that I love your book. I love your book. It's really fun for me because I read for you so much when you were young, to see that your life has just become what it was supposed to.
Thank
It's
you.
really so beautiful. Like I was so happy when you got married, so happy when Crystal came in the world, so happy that you're teaching, so happy that you have this book and that you've been, on best sellers, writing with other people as well. So I
Yeah,
think
and I see myself as a storyteller, which I've always told you. And so I have other books in me. I have a memoir, I have a novel, I have a children's book, I have, other things that I'm
yeah,
working on. But I love having the basis, my writing book, because that's the grounding of all the tools and techniques and craft. And I made sure to include my stories, because that's important to me too, to show where I've been and where I've come from. And so, from dealing with me back in the day. And yeah, it's just been beautiful. And it's been beautiful seeing you transform and pivot at every aspect with your life and being such a good mom to your kids, which is consistent, which Richard also says that in the book, that
yeah.
a great mom. This was wonderful, Tara. Everyone, get the book Soul Writers. Even if you're not really into spiritual stuff, it's really fascinating. You can look at it from an academic perspective because there is a lot of background and information that Tara shares. And if you're spiritual, obviously this is something in the wheelhouse. And she's just somebody that is a real well-regarded source in the spiritual world and has been for decades. And I see her as one myself.
Yeah, thank you. And so you can get both our books on Amazon. Amazon's the easy, really,
Yes.
to get the book. So
And
Soul
I'm going to share all the links in my show notes where you can get your book and the links, and also how to follow you and how to get in touch with you. Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.